Welcome to Conversations with Beks. Today we have on our conversation Alexandra Nageli from Switzerland. These conversations we've been having since the lockdown. So roughly, I think our first one was actually in April. And the whole purpose of these is to have a discussion one-on-one with somebody involved in one of our camps, or somebody who we do business with and partner with, or somebody in the travel industry, keeping the conversations relevant to the current situation, whether it's the lack of travel or the excitement about new travel or the excitement about the new normal way of traveling. And today we really are focusing on discussing what it is that really made the camp that it is today, Somalisa camp. But before Alexandra introduces herself, I'd like to introduce myself for those who are not familiar with Conversations with Beks. I'm the founder and CEO of African Bush Camps, a business that I co-founded 16 years ago, starting in Zimbabwe, then moving across to Botswana, and then finally Zambia. We started this business 16 years ago, and today we're about to launch, as soon as Botswana's borders are opened, our 16th camp, Kwai Ledwood. So Alexandra, welcome to Conversations with Beks. The roles, normally I'm the facilitator, I ask the questions, but today we're actually going to do a role reversal, and I am going to be interviewed by Alexandra. So Alexandra, over to you.
Thank you, and good to see you, Beks. It's a great pleasure for me to have this virtual conversation with you today. Well, as you see, I'm in Hwange National Park. Time for a sundowner. Unfortunately not. Yes, I wish so. Only dreaming of it. I'm actually based in Switzerland, as you mentioned. In my house right now, out in the countryside. And yes, I have the honor to represent African bush camps and to share my passion for Africa and your camps under Moya Africa, together with Julie Schwer, my colleague, mainly actually in the Germanic market and the Netherlands. And I've had the privilege to travel with you through Europe, doing roadshows and travel fairs alongside with you, which was always very exciting and inspiring, of course. And yeah, so that's about me. And let's hope we get the chance to do this sometime soon again. So. But today we're talking about the beautiful Somalisa camp, one of my favorite African bush camps. And yes, Somalisa was where it all started for you and African bush camps. Some call it the heart of African bush camps. And yeah, tell us, how come you wanted to open your own safari camp?
So Alexandra, yeah, thank you for that. It's, you know, Somalisa, I suppose others call it the heart of African bush camps. I don't know if that's quite true, but I think people relate to it as the first child, as it were, because it was the first camp that we created 16 years ago. And Somalisa was really created out of a frustration of having traveled throughout Africa, seen different safari camps, guided in different safari camps all over Africa. And it was, you know, 16 years ago at a time where a lot of the safari camps and the rhetoric in terms of the messaging of what we're doing in Africa was becoming more and more centered around the accommodation. And of course, having a background as a guide, I really believe that what we offer is an experience. The accommodation just so happens that you need a place to sleep under. So the creation really of Somalisa is around being able to showcase the most amazing guides and naturalists that Africa have, and measuring and rating luxury, not as the size of your tent or having his and her basin or all the, you know, luxury things that the safari camps these days offer. It was more of saying, what is luxury to us? And luxury for us is about space, it's about wilderness, and it's about being out in Africa with some of the best and the finest naturalists and professional guides. And that's the premise with which Somalisa was then born. And for the first few years of its existence, and that was of course 2006. So for the first few years of its existence, you've got to understand that what really kept Somalisa going was the myriad and the diverse guides from all over Africa that would travel with their guests to Somalisa to offer and showcase that magic, because they were allowed to be who they are, which is professional guides. And, you know, just to give you an example, there's some parts of Africa I would travel to, and I'd be sitting in front of a lion kill, lions devouring a zebra, and to have a camp radio the guide and say, look, please make sure that you get back to camp by 10 o'clock at the very latest, because your guests need to have breakfast, and after breakfast, they've got a spa treatment booked in. You know, for me, I was like, this is super crazy. People are here to see the wildlife and experience nature at its best. And here it is. You know, if it's time for breakfast and we're out watching, you know, a zebra kill, a lion having killed a zebra, then you know what? If breakfast needs to make its way out into the field whilst we're watching these lions devour the zebra, then so be it. So it was on that basis that all the other camps were also developing the same sort of style, where first top of mind and priority is the experience. And that's really what we've become known for throughout our camps.
True, yes. Well, you were born and bred in Zimbabwe, just outside Hwange National Park. Can you tell us a bit more how you got inspired by nature and wildlife, and maybe about your first safari experience in the Hwange National Park?
So my first wildlife experience was during my school holidays before I left school, where I started spending time doing volunteer work in safari camps. Friends older than myself or other friends that had left school before I did were working in that field. And being invited to go out on a volunteer basis and get to observe, learn, that's really what inspired me. But if I just roll back a little bit, you know, I grew up on the edge of Hwange National Park, and in drought years, we would have elephants come into our garden. There would be reports of lions coming to the edge of the villages. And growing up as a kid, we obviously had lions come into our areas as well, and we had elephants in our fields. So growing up with this sort of conflict, as it were, and curiosity for wildlife and curiosity for why people would come in and spend time in these game reserves and open vehicles, all that curiosity got me thinking that perhaps this is something that I'd like to do. And of course, having a taste of that during my school holidays just really demonstrated to me that learning in a classroom does not need to be between four walls. It can be out in nature. And so when I left school, I was very impatient and didn't go to official studies per se, but I was invited out to go and start a job out in the field as a trainee guide. And as soon as I got that opportunity, I was out the door and in the bush, and I've never regretted it since.
Good. And how did you choose the location to build the camp? And maybe also, how did the camp look like when you first opened? I mean, maybe also tell us a bit how involved you were in the process of building the lodge and getting it up and running.
Yeah, so my first job was in the Hwange area, and in the area called Guai Valley, which was a private conservancies bordering the park. But our main activities and excursions was into Hwange National Park. And my second job was actually working in a private concession inside the national park. So very different to working in a place outside the park where we would have to drive, go through the gates, etc. But this was a private concession in the park. And one of the excursions that I would do with people that I could really sense love being out and they'd spend half a day out or a full day out, I'd take them out of the private concession and explore a bit more of the park. And this is in the southeastern part of the park, which is very remote, and you could be on an all-day drive and not see anyone. And there was this particular track, which is now one of the main dirt tracks that we use to access Somalisa. And I remember going through there, and really, if you look where Somalisa is positioned, it's in an old ancient river system. And where Somalisa camp is, it's on an island, it's an acacia island. And certain times of the year, these acacias produce a fruit, what we call pods. And they drop their fruit, or at least the elephants absolutely love them, and other animals, very rich in protein, the acacia pods. And I would go there and basically park there for tea, or sometimes even serve a picnic lunch there. And we just totally surrounded by these elephants. And I remember sitting underneath there and thinking, this is such a special spot. So fast track going into the 2000s, at least 2005, 2006. I remembered that special spot, and it's a spot that I returned to multiple number of times, obviously occasionally since I'd left the area. And I remember thinking to myself, this would be the typical place where I would set up a safari camp. So in 2006, having been awarded the concession, I went about to set up the safari camp, but it was very simple camp, and it had a certain charm about it. I remember my first tents were actually white tents, and I was trying to depict there the sort of typical picture of the early explorers, where they would go and set up a camp under the trees, and they would be there for a few months, maybe even a few weeks before they move on. So that's the feeling and the atmosphere that that original camp had. And in fact, I remember we had very little capital to start that camp. And in fact, we went to a few friends who had been on safaris with me throughout Africa. We went to family members with my begging bowl, essentially, and they all chipped in and said, look, we believe in what we're doing. We think this is totally the right thing to do. And we believe that this camp will be successful. And one day you'll be able to repay us. And that's essentially what happened. So we built this only 6 tents, so maximum 12 beds. And this camp was obviously born in the middle of a crisis in Zimbabwe, with the politics and the economy, which was later, well, very shortly, 2 years later, followed by one of the biggest world recessions in the late 2000s, sort of 2008. And so, you know, those were difficult years. But having recognizing that the years were going to be difficult, within three to 6 months of opening up Somalisa camp, I was very fortunate to get an opportunity to open up Linyanti Bush Camp in Botswana, which was actually fortuitous, because had we not opened up at Linyanti Bush Camp, we may not have had the resources and the inroads into the marketplace that we had, that we could then become the trusted partners, or at least product for Zimbabwean camps. So we ended up operating safaris in 2 countries, in Botswana and in Zimbabwe. And that's what helped us grow our portfolio in Botswana, and then got back to Zimbabwe and started to rebuild again until 2015, when we had the new Renovation and the new Somalisa was born.
Exactly. Oh, wow. Amazing. Well, you mentioned the elephants, and Somalisa is also famous for its elephant pool. Can you tell us the story behind it, and maybe one of your personal experiences? I've heard that you still take a dip in the pool every now and then when there are no guests around. Is that true?
Yeah, so I mean, this pool, to be fair, I had no idea that it was going to be such a success and attract as many elephants as it did. And in fact, in the dry season, it actually is a bit of a nightmare. To the extent that the new redesign of the Somalisa camp, we've left the old pool there, which becomes a drinking hole. We've put logs in front so that there's a little bit of a barrier for the elephants, but we do provide water still into that pool, but it's a very sludgy, slimy pool that, trust me, you don't want to go into. But to be able to go into this water hole in the peak of the dry season and have this wall of elephants just completely envelop you, it's completely safe. It doesn't antagonize the elephants. But to be in amongst, in the water, sort of chin deep, and look up and you're just surrounded by elephants, it's just the most amazing experience. But Hwange National Park is home to a very large population of elephants. It's estimated to about 30 to 35,000, one of the largest populations in Africa, well, in the world, after Botswana. So it really, for people that love elephants, love to interact with elephants, and love to learn about elephants, both you know, the actual elephants themselves and their biology, their challenges, and their plight as a conservation story. Hwange National Park is one of those places where you can do that, and we're very fortunate that Somalisa is one of those havens for them.
Definitely, yes. Well, you mentioned that you renovated the camp in 2015. Maybe you can give us some more information, what major changes you have done, and also describe the new Somalisa, maybe some little details you really like about your camp, and maybe even some news about the camp.
So Somalisa camp in its new form. The rooms are a lot bigger, and what really I wanted to try and create there was the complete combination of the old safari look meets the new safari look. So a lot of that depended on repurposing some of the artifacts, some of the furniture, and some of the styling from the old camp and incorporate that into the new camp. So in the new camp, some of the furniture was also repurposing old furniture that we collected from old auction houses, from old warehouses, also from Zimbabwe. And in designing all our camps these days, we try and make sure that there's a lot of local component as much as possible, where we source most of our stuff locally where we can. And even back in 2015, all that was still possible in Zimbabwe. So we managed to get a lot of old stuff, but we also managed to design the camp so that it had its modern feel of sort of drapey roofs with high tension steels and stretch fabric, modern fabric that you can actually stretch and sort of show that typical shape of the classic tent. So we managed to achieve that, but also recycling in terms of using old corrugated iron sheets, rusty from old factories that were closing down in Bloel. We repurposed using some of the old timber from the old camp, some of the wash basins, and we brought all those elements together and created what today is the magical Somalisa. But just further to that with Somalisa, in the formative years of even the old Somalisa, we created on the side a family camp. And traditionally, as you'll probably know, kids on safari was something that a lot of people didn't contemplate. A lot of people would say, no kids below the age of 16. So safaris back in the days were very child unfriendly. But actually, back then, I suppose the rhetoric was that it's not as safe. But with the professional guides that we have, it actually is one of the safest things to do. And it's something, family travel is something that we really promote. And that is something that I really only understood once I started having my own kids. And so that was 13 years ago when I first had my first child. And since then, we've been on multiple adventures. We've hosted multiple families come through our camps. And in each location, we try to have a separate camp that caters for children. But what we do is we actually section off and actually build a new camp. So we've developed Somalisa Acacia, which has these double tents as family units with interleading doors. So it's safe for the kids to move back and forth between the tents. And usually those family tents are built closer to the main area so that they're connected by a boardwalk. So the kids don't have to go on the ground. So there's a certain degree of safety there. And really, family safaris has become one of our biggest things throughout all the countries that we operate. And we make sure that it's fun, and it's not just about wildlife, but it's also educational for both the kids and the parents. And we design child programs around that so that they get a lot more from it than just the ability to be able to see a lion or an elephant. And that has really been very successful throughout.
Yeah, and I actually can't wait to bring my own kids finally to that camp. Let's hope that will be soon, actually. Yeah. So yeah, Somalisa has also been awarded the first Gold Green Tourism certification in Zimbabwe. Can you tell us a bit more about that award and how important it is for you also to operate as a very eco-friendly safari camp?
Yeah, if you look at the old style of the old camps, operating the old camps, we would have diesel generators where we used fossil fuels. It's incredibly difficult without polluting the grounds, the soils, but also destruction to the roads, let alone just, the dirty fumes that go up in the air and the noise pollution out in such a tranquil place. So one of the things that we wanted to do in the new design of Somalisa, which we've done now with a lot of our new camps in the remote areas, is set up a solar farm. So we're completely off-grid. We no longer use generators because of our solar farms that produce enough power to basically run the camp. And so therefore we choose all our appliances according to the fact that they don't consume as much power. So that was quite an important element for us to win. But we also have these waste management systems that actually will, for example, recycle the waste and produce safe drinking water for the wildlife by the time the water is churned out. And operating in a place like Hwange, which is semi-desert area, water is very critical and very important, particularly for the wildlife. Some of you have seen the horrific images of elephants dying in the drought years because of a lack of water, obviously a lack of food as well. But employing such a system, wastewater management system that basically manages the water that we consume, manages our waste, was also very important. If you go into the rooms, the sort of products that are organic that we use, that are chemical free, that becomes an important element of it. Where we source our food, where we procure a lot of our inputs, and into whatever we put into the running of the camp has to be carefully thought after, and being as much as possible plastic free. So you come into any one of our camps, you won't be given any water bottles out of plastic. You'll be given water bottles, canisters, brand new, that you use for the duration of your time. And the idea is that you use it for the duration of your safari, so that we don't pollute the natural environment. So all of these things are carefully thought after and are part of the design process of building a place. And it's through those that Somalisa has received that accolade. But you know, receiving that accolade also was not just based on the camp and the way in which we operate. It's our engagement with our staff, engagement with the surrounding communities, and all the projects that we carry out through the work of our foundation.
You mentioned it, safari is not mainly about the beautiful lodge, but also about the experience and the atmosphere in the camp as well. I tend to say that the people, the staff, are the heart of African bush camps, and as a guest, you really become part of the family as soon as you arrive in the camp. I've been very lucky to experience this personally myself several times, and in my opinion, that's really something that makes African bush camps unique. Especially in Somalisa, you have staff who has been working with for you almost since the beginning. And tell us, how do you keep the spirit up, and how do you motivate your staff, and maybe also how is the situation right now in this current COVID situation?
Alexandra, you're absolutely right. You can have the best facilities and you can have the best wildlife, but if you don't have the team that are delivering on it and presenting it, then you really don't have an experience. And we try to promote a culture within where people shine. In your traditional lodges and hotels, whether it's the room hands or the camp hands, they're expected these invisible shadows that come in, clean after you, and disappear out of sight. And one of the things that culturally we've always made sure to promote is to give people their spotlight, whether it's a camp hand, a room hand, a waiter. Let them shine, let them stand out, let them interact with the guest. And you know, it's very easy for us to forget that part of the attraction for Africa in general when people come here is to experience the colorful tribes, the colorful cultures, and the vibrant people that are really ready to welcome you and give you that experience. And once you give people the stage, the people themselves are natural performers, and that really brings the best out of them. So as much as I would like to take the credit for everything, it's really the people that make it, and it's their natural dispositions. And for us, we can take the credit for allowing them and giving them the space to be able to do that. And it's that factor that, you know, when people give us feedback, the first thing they say is not, you know, we had such a lovely time because we saw lion and we saw leopard and we saw rhino. They say, you know what, we had such a great time because your team at Somalisa or your team at Nematusi or your team at Kwai were unbelievable. And they start to name individuals, whether it's the host, the guide, the managers, the camp hand, whoever it is. And what we've seen through that, it's really promoted people to be hungry to better themselves. We've got multiple stories where somebody came in as a camp hand, helping around, and from there they took an interest into becoming a kitchen hand. From there they took an interest to become a chef, from a chef to a guide, from a guide to a camp manager. So we have all these examples throughout our camps, and it's so rewarding to be able to see that. And that's simply because we put the spotlight on people of character and personality that want to go far. And it's through that we end up having people work for the business for as long as they have.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's great, actually. Well, yeah, I've also had the chance to meet and experience some of your wonderful guides that make it an important part, of course. African Bush Camps is known, as you said, for having excellent guides with extremely, with many years of experience usually, and outstanding knowledge and extremely high passion for their work. Obviously also thanks to your background as a professional guide, and I know that all our guides meet at Somalisa at the beginning of the year for a guides training, and that all over 600 years of experience came together as well this year in February. Can you give us a bit more insights of this week training and why the role as a guide is so important for a safari experience?
Yeah, as guides, you can never put up your hand and say you know it all. It's constantly learning, and in fact, the best teacher for learning for guides is other guides who have different experiences. You meet guides from 3 different countries. We're bringing expertise from Southern Africa who have different qualities, whether it's insects, whether it's snakes, birds, the stars, tracking, a good tracker. And some people would always be inclined to favor one thing over the other. And it's those strengths that they can contribute to other guides in terms of teaching, and that interaction to be able to learn, to inspire each other, and really uplift each other's skills and recognize and celebrate each other's skills is very, very rewarding for the guys. So it's quite a special, emotive time of the year when we do that. And throughout the group, we now have over 50 guides throughout the different camps. And so, that kind of knowledge is in excess 650 to 700 years worth of knowledge. And if that is shared between the guides, it just really creates that much more of a rich experience, not just for the guides themselves, but also for the guests. So we like to promote that. And that's not the only time of the year that the guides get experience. We also hold different courses and exercises during the course of the year, just so that people keep sharp, keep learning. And also we're promoting some of the younger guides that are coming into the system so that they can begin to gravitate and work towards getting their professional guides license. And that whole process is very important, not just for us as a business, but also for the industry, to have a constant stream of new, passionate guides coming into the system to be able to give capacity to the travel industry in Africa.
True, yes, that is. And yeah, it was always great to see the guides speaking about that training week. I think that's very something special as well for them. You mentioned the African Bush Camps Foundation, which was founded as well in 2006 with a vision of empowering the local rural communities. And what can you tell us? What are the main projects in the Hwange area, and maybe also how the situation is right now?
So just to give you some idea, over the last 16 years, throughout all the camps that we operate, our philosophy is that we need to partner with our staff who come from the local communities. And as a result of that, we partner with the local communities in ensuring that their livelihoods are uplifted. And if their livelihoods are uplifted, they are bound to help us and partner with us in conserving the wildlife that they are actually benefiting from, that we are benefiting from, that the whole world is benefiting from. So it really comes from our desire to forge a partnership with local communities to drive the conservation message. And over the last 16 years that we've run African bush camps, we've had over 72 projects come through the foundation. And currently we've got over 40 projects which are on the go. And these are impacting at least over 13,000 individuals throughout those areas. And in total, you're talking about, well, it's actually 13,000 households. And the result of that is over 50,000 individuals that are benefiting from the work that we do. And that's all as a result of tourism. That's why when people ask us quite a lot, what can we do to support you? What is the number one thing that we can do to support the work of the foundation and your work in the community? We say, just travel with us. And when you travel, you realize when you go and dive deeper, how much of that tourism dollar actually stretches and benefits those local communities, how much it benefits the work of conservation that we're doing. So it's really important for us. And some of those projects will stem from mainly education, making sure that our children are educated in our communities, and also just to make sure that they, especially during this time of COVID now, that they can get educated, but within the realms of safety. So proper sanitization, proper ablution facilities, so that not over 200 kids are sharing one facility, one toilet, which is one of the projects we've recently dealt with. But also, in these areas, basic needs such as water are a very rare commodity, let alone how do they sanitize to make sure that they're safe. How do we motivate and get parents to take their kids to school and make sure that their school attendance actually increases so that we can increase the pass rates? And sometimes that involves introducing 1 meal a day to each school to promote those kids to actually attend school. But then there's also the other side of it, which is to empower groups within the community to actually start and embark on a business project for which we provide the training skills, business skills, so that they can actually produce products, whether it's baskets or it's a sewing project, so that they actually sell some of those implements not only to our camps, but can also sell to the other surrounding camps. So we've got other community members that have started whole businesses as a result of that. And we support it obviously through our guests. And of course, we help them break through the markets, whether it's export or dealing or partnering with other safari camps in the area. So there's a multitude of them. And in terms of conservation, it could also be partnering with national parks, as we've recently done in Hwange in particular. We've partnered with Zimbabwe National Parks to try and support the ranges by providing protein supplements for them, and also providing basic staple foods during this time of COVID, recognizing that things are really tough economically and there's very little tourism, and some people that are in those communities have actually lost their jobs. So we being able to step into that particular void and say, now more than ever, the communities actually need to benefit from the previous years of tourism, even though there is zero income coming in. But that benefit is what's going to get our communities to buy in today more than ever. As you've probably heard, things like poaching, whether it's for bushmeat or commercial poaching, has really increased during this time of COVID. And that's because there's fewer eyes on the ground monitoring these places. There's fewer rangers on the ground. And the rangers that are there on the ground quite often are under-resourced. So we've stepped in as a foundation to ensure that they're adequately resourced and they're able to step in and do the jobs sustainably that they're employed to do, so that we have a future tourism with making sure that our wildlife and our national parks are protected. So there's a multitude of projects, but in general, it would be a combination of projects that direct the people of the community directly, and then projects that really influence conservation and the wildlife directly. And at the end of the day, the whole premise of what we do is to make sure that collectively we are all playing our roles and our parts in ensuring that we conserve and share Africa together.
Sure, yes, and you do very great work on that, actually. You are one of the few lucky ones being able to travel to Somalisa last week. So please let us know how it felt to be back, in the camps after such a long time and give us some insider information of how it is traveling through Zimbabwe right now.
Alexandra, it felt like going into the camps, it almost felt like doing a safari for the first time. It was very emotional to be able to catch up with the teams, catch up with the guides and all the staff, and to see how inspired and motivated the staff are to return back to work and to be able to do what they're employed to do, to see visitors coming through the camps. And look, I think in everybody's mind, people expect, I think, to go back or to come back to Africa and experience it the same way that they experienced it before. I think it's going to be different. It's a sign of the times. So there's various other policies and guidelines that we've had to put in place to ensure that our staff are safe, but also to ensure that our guests are safe as they come and visit us. I mean, these are protocols and procedures that have been put in place around the world. It doesn't matter where you go. But for me, returning back, it was very evident that the experiences of wildlife, are still as amazing. And in fact, one of the things that we're promoting more and more is that instead of people burning up a lot of energy, moving from one place to the other, trying to cover so much ground, we really think to take it slow, spend more time in each area, getting to understand the people, the culture, and appreciating the challenges of the area will give you that much more of a deeper experience in any given area. And so just to be able to go and see that, formulating, talk to guests that are traveling through our camps right now, there's really a sense of appreciation and a sense of deeper understanding and compassion for the wildlife and the people. And as I say, the biggest thing for me, I mean, we saw amazing lion, we saw lion hunting buffalo, we saw leopard, we saw it all. But that experience, I mean, as you can imagine, it's probably the longest time I've ever spent without seeing a lion or elephant in my entire guiding career, which is of 24 years. So it was really quite amazing to get back to wildlife. But what was even equally more amazing, as we said earlier on, was to connect with the teams and really see them getting back to what they're good at and doing it well, despite the fact that they have to wear a mask the whole time and there's all these other policies around that. But I think there is really a sense of appreciation, and I think people coming back to Africa or coming to Africa for the first time will have a much deeper a level of experience, a much deeper understanding of what it means to be out in these amazing wilderness areas. So yes, I was very, very fortunate to spend a magical 6 days back in my home country after not having done any cross-border travels for over 7 months.
Yeah, I can only imagine. That's great to hear. And we're running out of time, unfortunately. But thank you, Beks, for taking the time to have this conversation with me and share so many insights and information about Somalisa camp. Much appreciated, of course. And to end this conversation, I would love to share just a short video of the Somalisa team doing the Jerusalem challenge. It's actually so uplifting and made me smile, and I think it's important to share positive news now in this current situation. So yeah, enjoy and keep positive, and thank you, Beks, again.
Thank you very much, Lex. I really appreciate it, and hopefully our audience find that very insightful, and we look forward to welcoming you back in our part of the world when you can travel.
Me too.
Thank you, Lex.
Thank you.
Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze